In that song, the journey to the height of development is launched. Hey people, as you navigate through the times, remember that the mind is the master. Attune your mind to the beauties of life. Open your heart to the sunshines of the future. As you listen, remember that the journey we take is the one of history, politics, and power. It is the radio man's time. It is Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. I am Edmondo Bilo. The program is State Affairs.
In the global village of conflicting ideologies and complexities, understanding systems and schemes through awareness and social reconstruction becomes expedient.
They never told you how you offended them?
I'm not on trial, so I can't go before
Join the radio man, Edmondo Bilo, on State Affairs for local and international politics, security, extensive economic analysis, interviews, and world power play.
Nigerians must choose the path they want to follow. Follow the same looters and sponsors of violence who control the political structures or encourage the formation of a new leadership team.
Be a global citizen and join the radio revolution on State Affairs. State Affairs with Edmond Obilo. Radio just got deeper.
Betamaso sanalom Huasa benge kaputo
State Affairs.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo.
These names are names of history. Did you have the opportunity to meet them?
I met their wives, and some of their children were friends.
So what was it like at that time, living among military officers? What was it like?
That was the only life I had known. I was born in the barracks, and until 4th June 1979, I hadn't lived anywhere but the barracks. And even today, when I go to the barracks, that is where I feel most at home because of the orderliness.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
You know, one thing about that revolt was its brutal character.
Mm-hmm.
Not just General Odate Wellington was killed. The Jerry Rawlings gang rounded off previous leaders of Ghana, military leaders like Fred Akufo, Achiampong, and others were executed.
Yes, that is true.
Can we reflect on that?
Yes. As I said to you earlier, the National Reconciliation Commission report stated or described the 112 days of murderous rampage and sheer terror that the AFRC, i.e. Jerry Rawlings and his acolytes, unleashed on Ghana as being the bloodiest ever. And the NRC described life as being solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short.
State Affairs with Edmondo Bilo is live.
Let me take you back into the physics of politics. They call it political science. Politics is science. Let me remind you of this time. Hooke's Law. Hooke's Law. Hooke's Law states that provided the elastic limit is not exceeded, the extension E in an elastic material, for example wire, is proportional to the load or applied force. Therefore, F is proportional to E. Where K is the constant of the spring or wire, known as the stiffness or elastic constant. If F is newtons and E is in meters, K equals F over E. Hooke's Law. Provided the elastic limit is not exceeded, the extension E in an elastic material is proportional to the load or applied force F. Therefore, F is proportional to E. F equals to KE, where K is a constant. It is the physics of politics. This applies to the politics of Ghana. Some called it the 1979 revolution. No? Esther Odate Wellington does not see it from that angle. So today, in this class, we turn again to history, not just for remembrance, but for warning. O ye people, open your ears and listen. On the 4th of June, 1979, Ghana stood at a crossroads, began as a cry for justice, soon erupted into an insurrection that consumed its own. A nation worked to the sound of gunfire. What did they see? Her leaders dragged out and executed. At the heart of that storm stood Major General Odate Wellington, a man who chose loyalty to his oath over the temptation of betrayal. Yes, General Odate Wellington fell, not because he lacked courage, but because a nation allowed anger to replace dialogue, vengeance to eclipse vision. History teaches us that revolutions may burn bright in the moment, but their flames often scorch generations. Ghana paid dearly for the fury of June 4. And so, as we tell this story, let it not just be about Ghana. Let it be a mirror for us. What can you see? When we hear the drums of unrest in our own land, when frustration tempts us towards revolt, may we remember, change built on rage is fragile, but change built on wisdom endures. Greetings. This is State Affairs, and we'll walk through the storm of Ghana's past so that we may guard against the storms of our future. The radio man is here. The program is State Affairs on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. I am Edmond Obilo.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
I'm in love.
My name is Olawale Abdulmajid Mogmonjubola. I'm the Honorable Commissioner for Public Works and Transport Oyo State. We're actually at the Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, the UTEC end of the Circular Road. And we're actually beginning the narrative of what this is all about. It's one of the most, privileged projects that His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde has embarked on, and this is bringing a huge development to the people of Oyo State. What do I mean by that? I'm saying if you're going towards Lagos and you're coming to Ibadan, you're going up north, you're going to Ilesha, and you're going to other side of the southwest, you don't need to come directly into Ibadan city again. It's a bypass, it's an express road, it spans about 32 kilometers. And the project, at the first phase of it, lot 1, which is being handled by the crane board, the contractor, I'm saying this end, it's about 70% completed right now. We are going on a tour to the first phase of this project. It's about 4 sections of the project. We have the section 1, which spans from UTEC Express to Badeku Express. From that ends at the Ashedire end of the road. Thank you. Let's go on the journey. This is actually a world-class project. You can see the inscription on it is done by first-class contractor, Cranberg. And you can see the standard of the work done here is actually a world-class project. I mean, I can imagine this. Maybe you need to visit the city of Abuja and you see something like this. Is a world-class project and it's going to last a lifetime. I can bet you on that. The headroom here from the finished level of the road to the tip of the overhead bridge, it's about 5.5 clearance way. Conveniently, trailers, heavy trucks can go right underneath down to Ibadan Lagos Expressway. What you're seeing here is actually the installation of a solar panel that powers the communication antennas around this zone, because it's going to be a world-class communication section from this end. Security is key to His Excellency, and that is why this is going on here right now.
What is clear from what we are seeing here is a bridge that tells the story of development in Oyo State, and a solar project here that connects the bridge and the communication world. The poles are not just communication gadgets. At night, this place is brightened, welcoming you into the pace-setter state, telling you that as you come at night, you meet the light that shines into the future. Seyi Makinde makes the point that a project of this magnitude can be carried out by government of the people. The commissioner is taking us on a journey, and it's a journey into the future. Come with us.
Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
You know, one thing about that revolt was its brutal character.
Mm-hmm.
Not just General Odate Wellington was killed, the Jerry Rawlings gang rounded off previous leaders of Ghana, military leaders like Fred Akufo, Achiampong, and others were executed.
Yes, that is true.
Can we reflect on that?
Yes. As I said to you earlier, the National Reconciliation Commission report stated or described the 112 days of murderous rampage and sheer terror that the AFRC, i.e. Jerry Rawlings and his acolytes, unleashed on Ghana as being the bloodiest ever. And the NRC described life as being solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Years later, or decades later, Rawlings went somewhere to speak to students. Actually, I'm not sure were these students from Nigeria? I may be mistaken, but why do I think they were from Nigeria? Anyhow, he told them there was a general called Odate Wellington, and he went around saying that I did this, that, and the other. So we sprayed him like mosquitoes. Can you imagine? If people knew who he really was, I don't think they'll be hailing him as a hero. Though I don't blame those outside Ghana because the news is filtered. But for those in Ghana, they have absolutely no excuse but cowardice. Cowardice and their own selfish interests prevent them from saying it exactly as it is.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
So history returns with a human voice. Esther Odati Wellington, daughter of the late Army Commander, Major General Odati.
We're actually at the beginning of the lot 1 of the first section of the circular road. Like I said earlier, the first section is about 32 kilometers span. So this is actually constructed by Cranebrook Limited. And I'm saying, if you look at what is here, if you look at to my left, you see the UTech University, and if you look to my right, you see another industry around. And you can have a view of the communication gadgets that are also power light around this axis. If you're coming into the city of Ibadan, you're coming to the light that His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde has actually created for the good people of Oyo State. So let's take the journey together. This is the beginning of the first phase of the circular road.
This is the Ibadan-Lagos road, end of the circular road. From here, your exit, the main exit from here is the Ibadan-Ife road. So if you are coming from Lagos and you are going to Ife,
not as triumph,
you have no business again
as tragedy.
with the city of Ibadan.
Through her voice,
You cut off Iwo Road,
of June 4th,
and here
are no
you come out at the
longer
Badeku
in
end,
the pages of history,
and that takes you straight
They
to
return
Osun State,
to challenge
Ondo
how we
State,
remember
from
Ghana's
this end.
reckoning.
I can talk about the quality of the
It
work.
is the story of Ghana. On
It is
State
clear for you
Affairs.
to say. Perhaps
You see,
Seyi Makinde can turn this bridge to
I
a
have
tourism
titled this
attraction.
class,
You can't see
From Wellington's
how to
fall
open up a
to
city
Rawlings' rise, the June
for
4
a long
insurrection
time.
in Ghana.
Ibadan needed a new
Thus
project
is the title.
that could open it up
class.
to a new level of development.
From Wellington's fall,
At some point,
To
Ibadan
Rawlings'
was
rise.
expanding, but it was
June 4
shrinking
insurrection.
because the infrastructure
Ghana.
base was not expanding with the population.
The story of Ghana's political leadership
With this project,
from the era of
you have
Kwame
opened
Nkrumah
up the city.
to the
So what will
Jerry
happen?
Rawlings-led
A new
revolt
Ibadan
of
city
June
will begin
4,
to emerge
1979.
on the corners of this
It's a
road.
story of vision.
That is development.
And the clash between progress and the realities of Ghana won her independence in 1957.
What Headman said, that the city of Ibadan, that you don't have any business if you're going to Ilesha, Ife, Ondo, you don't have any business to come into the city of Ibadan again. How what you need to do is come in at this end. If you're coming from Lagos Ibadan Express, come in at this end and go straight to Badeku end and bust out at the Ibadan Ife Express. But the thing I need to let you
His
know,
voice
like he said,
reverberated around the
this
world.
is bringing development to your state. This
The
is
energy.
building the new Ibadan. And
It
I'm
was a
telling
new
you,
identity
the corridor around this axis is going to be a
that
world-class
day in
development.
1957.
Industrial, residential are going to be world-class. What do I mean by that? You can't just bust out from the corridor end to come into the express, except you go and you link out. You come out at the toll gate end of the express. And the development that's going to be happening here are going to be highly regulated. I can bet you it's going to be a world-class residential area and it's going to be a world-class industrial area. Thank you.
As I said in the assembly just minutes ago, I made a point that we are going to say that we create our own African personality and identity. It's the only way in which we can show the world that we are ready for our own battle. We have done the battle, and we again rededicate ourselves not only in the struggle to emancipate other territories in Africa. Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Nkrumah's vision was vast industrialization, education for all, and a united Africa free from imperial influence. Yet his leadership soon acquired the trappings of authoritarianism. Political opposition was silenced, a one-party state emerged, and vast national projects strained the economy. Professor Ademola Araoye takes us into Nkrumah's education policy. He was born in Ghana. He saw Ghana. He studies Ghana. Araoye is a Pan-Africanist.
Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown by the military in 1966. What then happened to that education system he created?
Well, the educational system Kwame Nkrumah created was solid in terms of the substantive contents of what you learned. Not only that, in the process of forging the African identity, the African personality, which was central to the vision of Kwame Nkrumah, you were also exposed to very iconic representations of his own ideas in teachers that taught you. You had people who were dedicated. You entered Ghanaian secondary schools, primary schools, and you knew the teachers were well trained. They knew what they were about. It was not a transactional professional relationship. These were dedicated icons of the vision of Nkrumah's idea of the African personality.
So this vision was pursued using education?
Yes. Education became an instrument for the pursuit of the vision of Kwame Nkrumah.
Can we call this indoctrination?
Yes, well, yeah. In a sense, when you get so exposed to intense ideas, and then the environment in itself is configured to validate the ideas that you are being exposed to, you can call it a form of indoctrination. But slightly indoctrination devalues the intrinsic essence of what you are learning. The schools, the formal schools, were committed to formal education, substantive education. But you also had the other dimension of Kwame Nkrumah, which was the Ghana Young Pioneers, in which all African youths, all Ghanaian youths, and when I talk of Ghanaian youth now in quotes, all African youths were brought into, and you were indoctrinated. You learned more about the African personality. You learned about, you are being infused with the confidence that you could go out in the world and make a difference. You needed to be yourself. You needed to be proud of yourself.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
By 1966, amid accusations of corruption, economic decline, and fears of his socialist leanings, the military struck in Ghana. Nkrumah was overthrown in a coup while abroad exiling the man who had once been the symbol of Ghana's freedom. In the power vacuum that followed, the National Liberation Council, led by General Joseph Nkrumah, took charge. The NLC sought to reverse many of Nkrumah's socialist policies, cutting Western support and returning to market-oriented economics. But its military bureaucratic rule alienated many, and by 1969, Ghana was ready to return to civilian leadership. Kofi Abrefa Busia became Prime Minister after the 1969 elections, ushering in Ghana's Second Republic. Busia promised rural development and economic reform, but his government faced severe financial crisis and unpopular austerity measures. In January 1972, as the economy crumbled under debt, the currency devaluation of the time, Colonel Ignatius Kutu Acheampong toppled Busia in yet another coup. Acheampong's rule under the National Redemption Council, later the Supreme Military Council, brought a populist torch, debt repudiation, Operation Feed Yourself to promote self-sufficiency, and rhetoric that appealed to ordinary Ghanaians. But corruption flourished, and by the late 1970s, public confidence had eroded. Acheampong was ousted by his own military colleagues in 1978, replaced by Lieutenant General Frederick Akufo, who promised a return to civilian rule. It was in this climate of economic decay, political disillusionment, and resentment towards a corrupt elite that a young flight lieutenant named Jerry John Rawlings emerged. On June 4, 1979, Rawlings led a mutiny that spiraled into full-scale revolt. Backed by junior ranks in the military and cheered by the civilians hungry for justice, Rawlings overthrew Akufo. His brief but fiery rule was marked by the execution of former military leaders as an attempt to purge corruption and the handing over of power to a newly elected civilian government later that year. The period between Nkrumah's fall and Rawlings' revolt was thus an attempt to define the political life of Ghana through coups and short-lived experiments in democracy. It was a time when Ghana's political journey was repeatedly derailed by economic crisis, corruption, and a deepening gulf between the ruling class and the governed. Then came the fertile ground for the populist uprising that Rawlings would ignite. In this story, Esther Odati Wellington tells her story, but that will be after this time out. Relax, breathe in. As you breathe in, remember, Hooke's law states that provided the elastic limit is not exceeded, the extension E in an elastic material is proportional to the load or applied force F. F is proportional to E. F, therefore, equals KE, where K is a constant. Stay tuned, stay cool.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
We're actually at the beginning of the lot 1 of the first section of the circular road. Like I said earlier, the first section is about 32 kilometers span. So this is actually constructed by Cranebrook Limited. And I'm saying, if you look at what is here, if you look at to my left, you see the UTech University. And if you look to my right, you see another industry around. And you can have a view of the communication gadgets that are also power light around this axis. If you're coming into the city of Ibadan, you're coming to the light that His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde has actually created for the good people of Oyo State. So let's take the journey together. This is the beginning of the first phase of the circular road.
This is the Ibadan-Lagos road, end of the circular road. From here, your exit, the main exit from here is the Ibadan-Ife road. So if you are coming from Lagos and you are going to Ife, you have no business again with the city of Ibadan. You cut off Iwo Road, and here you come out at the Badeku end. And that takes you straight to Osun State, Ondo State from this end. I can talk about the quality of the work. It is clear for you to see. Perhaps Seyi Makinde can turn this bridge to a tourism attraction. You can't see how to open up a city. For a long time, Ibadan needed a new project that could open it up to a new level of development. At some point, Ibadan was expanding, but it was shrinking, because the infrastructure base was not expanding with the population. With this project, you have opened up the city. So what will happen? A new Ibadan city will begin to emerge on the corners of this road. That is development.
What Edmond said, that the city of Ibadan, that you don't have any business if you're going to Ilesha, Ife, Ondo, you don't have any business to come into the city of Ibadan again. What you need to do is come in at this end. If you're coming from Lagos Ibadan Express, come in at this end and go straight to Badeku end and bust out at the Ibadan Ife Express. But the thing I need to let you know, like he said, this is bringing development to your state. This is building the new Ibadan. And I'm telling you, the corridor around this axis is going to be a world-class development. Industrial, residential are going to be world-class. What do I mean by that? You can't just bust out from the corridor end to come into the express. except you go and you link out, you come out at the toll gate end of the express. And the development that's going to be happening here are going to be highly regulated. I can bet you it's going to be a world-class residential area, and it's going to be a world-class industrial area. Thank you. We're actually at the beginning of the lot 1 of the first section of the circular road. Like I said earlier, the first section is about 32 kilometer span. So this is actually constructed by Cranebrook Limited. And I'm saying, if you look at what is here, if you look at to my left, you see the UTech University. And if you look to my right, you see another industry around. And you can have a view of the communication gadgets that are also power light around this axis. If you're coming into the city of Ibadan, you're coming to the light that His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde has actually created for the good people of Oyo State. So let's take the journey together. This is the beginning of the first phase of the circular road.
This is the Ibadan-Lagos road, end of the circular road. From here, your exit, the main exit from here is the Ibadan-Ife road. So if you are coming from Lagos and you are going to Ife, you have no business again with the city of Ibadan. You cut off Iwo Road, and here you come out at the Badeku end. And that takes you straight to Osun State, Ondo State from this end. I can talk about the quality of the work. It is clear for you to see. Perhaps Seyi Makinde can turn this bridge to a tourism attraction. You can't see how to open up a city. For a long time, Ibadan needed a new project that could open it up to a new level of development. At some point, Ibadan was expanding.
But he approached everything with military discipline, and his name always elicits, respect and admiration. And a lot of people just thought that he was very upright, and I think might have looked on favorably or more favorably if he had taken the reins of power, but he was not interested in that in any way, shape, or form. And mind you, he was a great officer and a fine gentleman. And loyalty is one of the cardinal values of the military tradition. So there is no way General Udati Wellington would have thought of wresting power from his superior officer, who was General Akufo. And I hope this puts paid to that myth.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Here we go.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live. Stay tuned.
Esther Odatewe. The 4th of June, 19... Revolutions are not born in the palaces. They are born in the empty stomachs of the hungry. When the people have nothing left to lose, even the words of generals cannot keep them out. Was that the case of Ghana that Wellington sought to defend? Was that why Rawlings unleashed that on the state? By the dawn of June 4, 1979, Ghana's political order was brittled by fears of military rule, economic hardship, and public disgust at the corruption of its leaders. In the barracks, discontent among the junior ranks was at a boiling point. The removal of Achimpong in 1978 and his replacement by Lieutenant General Frederick Akufo had not changed much. The same military elite had power, the same privileges remained, and ordinary soldiers still struggled to make ends meet. Among those boiling with frustration was Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings, who had already attempted a coup on the 15th of May, 1979, but he failed. So take note of this. Jerry Rawlings attempted a coup in Ghana on the 15th of May, 1979, but he failed. He was in detention, awaiting court-martial, but in the early hours of the 4th of June, sympathetic junior officers and enlisted men stormed the guardroom and freed Jerry Rawlings. The uprising quickly spread, and the mutiny took on a life of its own. At the heart of the storm was Major General Odate Wellington, Ghana's army commander. A career soldier, disciplined and highly respected, he had built his reputation on loyalty to the chain of command. As chaos spread in the capital, Odate Wellington had a choice: negotiate with the mutineers and perhaps save lives, or confront them directly, risking bloodshed. General Odate Wellington chose the latter. For him, it was about power. It was about the integrity of the army and the principle that the armed forces could not be held hostage by rebellious junior ranks. Armed with loyal troops, he set out to crush the revolt. It is the last march of Wellington. It happened under the fading sky of June. A soldier worked into history's scars. The bullet that brought him down also tore the fabric of an age. Take note of this. The death of one commander can signal the death of an era, for in his fall, the illusions of permanence was broken. Sometimes, history is not kind to those who defend a dying order. It simply remembers their courage and forgets their cause. Esther Odate Wellington is on State Affairs. Esther Odate Wellington, it is a pleasure to have you on State Affairs. The 4th of June, 1979 is a date that is unique in the history of Ghana. That day, your father, the army commander, was killed in that coup. How did you receive the news of that day?
I was a student at Achimota School, a boarding school in Accra, and I was in the middle of my O-level exams, GCE O-level exams, and we had this old-fashioned, what we used to call box radio in those days, in the common room of the boarding house. And that is when we turned it on. And I heard Rawlings or somebody like that announcing that there was what they called a coup. Then I subsequently heard my father's voice saying that the uprising had been quelled. So that gave me some comfort. We went about, because when you're on the school compound, of course, you are insulated from whatever is happening outside. Later on, the rest of the day, I didn't hear anything more. So I thought everything was under control. Then I think a day or two later, my mother came to visit. And we just hugged each other. And I asked her where Daddy was. She didn't know at the time. And I asked what had become, where she was. She had left our house in the barracks, the residence in the barracks. And I asked, and she didn't know where Daddy was. And I asked her, I think, why the uprising had been successful. And I seem to recall her saying that some people I think the troops had come in from all over the country or something. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, it had been a difficult situation and she hadn't heard from my father. Right. I still thought, well, he was holed up somewhere strategizing. I carried on with my exams. And then, unbeknownst to me and my mother, he had been killed. She only found out when somebody called her and the person let it out of the bag without realizing that she didn't know. Now, my friends in the boarding house were very kind and sensitive. And I much later found out that they had disabled the television in the common room and perhaps the radio as well, so that I wouldn't learn of my father's demise. So some days later, I saw a car drive in front of the boarding house, and I thought I recognized it. So I got out, and I was sitting with a friend who tried to dissuade me from going out. But I insisted, and I ran after the car because I thought news from Daddy, because this is the close, an officer who worked very closely with Daddy. And he then came and he told me the news. And of course, I began to wail uncontrollably. That is how I found out that my father had been murdered.
He stood his ground. He tried to call the revolting soldiers to order, but by this time he had lost control. Jerry Rawlings led that revolt of the army. Looking back to that time and looking at the Ghana of this moment, do you think that revolt was in order?
Not at all. Not at all. It took the country back 40 years, I would say. I really cannot tell you what that insurrection, how that insurrection benefited the country. In terms of even human cost, in terms of material cost, it was of no benefit to the country. So far as I'm concerned, this was a group of adventurers who set out to settle personal scores under the guise of probity and accountability, when they had no moral grounds for taking anyone to task. What it left the country with was a sense of division, actually not a sense, but division, which persists still today, proliferation of arms, indiscipline, and rampant corruption. That is what it bequeathed the country. And so I cannot, in all honesty, tell you that that insurrection was useful.
In Africa today, some radicals make reference to the Jerry Rawlings revolution in Ghana. Some have celebrated it. They felt that was what Africa needed at that time. Some have called them revolutionaries.
Now, I will correct that. What I'll say, it's a fallacy to call them revolutionaries. They were not revolutionaries in the true sense of the word. They were a bunch of indisciplined men. That's what they were. And for those people in Africa and elsewhere who look on Rawlings and his acolytes as being revolutionaries, I think they are misguided. If they lived in the country and they knew the conditions under which the general populace lived, I don't think they would be making that assertion. And indeed, when the National Reconciliation Commission, which was formed by President John Kufuor when he took over from Rawlings in 2000, when he set up that National Reconciliation to investigate human rights abuses in the country, the report stated in one of the chapters, that the 112 days that the AFRC, the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, led by Jerry Rawlings, the 112 days they ruled the country, was a period when life was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. And that is in only 112 days. And there was a murderous rampage and sheer terror, the like of which has never been seen before.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Okay, I'm ready to hear your voice. This is the subject we are discussing. So you can join the discourse by calling 070-694-93000. That is 070-694-93000 or 070-144-757-70. 070-144-757-70. Join the discourse. Join the broadcast. Let's hear from you. Falaya John, I can see you here. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm calling from Mokola. My name is Ita. I thank you very much for your job and everything you're doing. I really appreciate it. And I understand the madam, the daughter of the head president, I understand. But one question I only want to ask from her is, if that incident did not happen, will people be running to Ghana today? Even Nigerians. I remember there was this bag called Ghana Must Go. If that incident did not happen, will Ghana be celebrated today? Will people be running to Ghana, to go to Ghana today? I understand she is the daughter of, the armed forces led general, but that's just the question I have. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Another question is that despite the event, is Ghana an advanced economy today? Despite the event, is Ghana better than Kenya or Nigeria? That despite the bloodshed, why has non-African country attained the advanced status? Those are other questions to answer. Bola Tito, I can see you here. Victor Lawale on Splash FM Facebook page. Good morning. Tokwe Omotunde, I greet you. Fale John, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Thank you, Lebinos. This is Kola Ilori from Apata. When I heard people saying Nigeria are running to Ghana, what is it in Ghana that Nigeria are running to? People who always moved. People even moved to where there's war. Is a Ghana economy better than Nigeria? No. Ghana economy have never been in first top 5 best economy in Africa. It's always Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and DRC. So the woman is saying the right. They are not better off. It's only we use mouth to demoralize our own country and exalt other nations. And I think we should stop that. We are doing our best, and I think Nigeria will better more than this. Thank you.
Thank you for calling the radio station. The lines are open. Join the discourse. Let's hear from you. It is the lesson of history. Good morning.
Hello, Timere.
Good morning.
Okay. You see, I'm the second. Ghana and Nigeria have been before the independence. Zik trained in Ghana. Onabanjo was in Ghana. So whether Ghana is good or bad, especially Ghana is a lineage of Southeast. They have been for many years. Whether Nigeria is better, even though Nigeria has become the best like London today or America, you see Nigerians there, especially the people from the Southeast. And they've been living in harmony all the years. Ghana doesn't know any other tribe than Southeast here in Nigeria. During the time of Nkrumah, the record is there. They are brothers. So they are not going there because Nigeria is better than them or whatever. But can you say now that Nigeria is better than them? You cannot say so. Let us say the truth. Are we going to be dying here and those who have been living there for many years are living there, say that they are running to that place? Who is running to that place? They have been there for many years. It's not the people from the South East. I don't know any other thing. Every region in Nigeria have their base. Some people are in Nigeria, some are child. Those for the North.
Thank you.
So let us not carry sentimental come over this type of thing. What happened over there now? You don't know who bribed them to protest against the people, and they set up to mention Nigeria and they're mentioning the Igbos. Whereas it's not ordinary hand.
Thank you.
They use something to bribe them to disgrace people from that region.
Thank you. The lines are open. 070694 93000. Join the discourse. Good morning.
Hello, good morning. I'm Tujikola calling from Mania.
The ball is in your court.
It's very good you brought this woman this morning, and it's very enlightening something. I feel this must be balanced on issues like that. But we still want to. There's something we have to note, that this woman, the sentiment comes into account of the whole thing because she's affected. We don't expect her to say anything otherwise. I think Jerry's revolution in Ghana was very much celebrated at that time, and made some correction based on probity and accountability. So there's nothing she wants to say now that can convince somebody like me portraying Jerry Rawlings in a bad light to people. To me, he remained an example for other African leaders to cause. The same with Sankara in Côte d'Ivoire. Another leaders like that coming up now. So Jerry is a leader to be celebrated. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. The death of one commander can signal the death of an era. For in General Odate Wellington's fall, the illusions of permanence was broken. Sometimes, history is not kind to those who defend a dying order. It simply remembers their courage and forgets their cause. The streets of Accra became a battlefield. Rawlings supporters, many of them young and poorly equipped, were initially no match for the professional soldiers until the army commander's control waned. To make the point clear, Major General Odate Wellington was the army commander, also known as the Chief of Army Staff. He was not the head of state, The head of state was Lieutenant General Frederick Akufo. Odate Wellington was the army commander that went to battle to stop Jerry Rawlings. Why the other generals chickened out? It is the story of history, the story of time. It is Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. Remember, Esther Odate Wellington is on State Affairs.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Splash FM 105.5.
We're actually at the beginning of the lot 1 of the first section of the circular road. Like I said earlier, the first section is about 32 kilometers span. So this is actually constructed by Cranebrook Limited. And I'm saying, if you look at what is here, if you look at to my left, you see the UTech University. And if you look to my right, you see another industry around. And you can have a view of the communication gadgets that are also power light around this axis. If you're coming into the city of Ibadan, you're coming to the light that His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde has actually created for the good people of Oyo State. So let's take the journey together. This is the beginning of the first phase of the circular road. This is we're actually at the beginning of the lot 1 of the first section of the circular road. Like I said earlier, the first section is about 32 kilometers span. So this is actually constructed by Cranebrook Limited. And I'm saying, if you look at what is here, if you look at to my left, you see the UTech University. And if you look to my right, you see another industry around. And you can have a view of the communication gadgets that are also power light around this axis. If you're coming into the city of Ibadan, you're coming to the light that His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde has actually created for the good people of Oyo State. So let's take the journey together. This is the beginning of the first phase of the circular road. This is the Ibadan-Lagos road, end of the circular road. From here, your exit, the main exit from here is the Ibadan-Ife road. So if you are coming from Lagos and you are going to Ife, you have no business again with the city of Ibadan. You cut off Iwo Road
And here, you come out at the Badeku end. And that takes you straight to Osun State, Ondo State, from this end. I can talk about the quality of the work. It is clear for you to see. Perhaps Seyi Makinde can turn this bridge to a tourism attraction. You can't see how to open up a city. For a long time, Ibadan needed a new project that could open it up to a new level of development. At some point, Ibadan was expanding, but it was shrinking because the infrastructure base was not expanding with the population. With this project, you have opened up the city. So what will happen? A new Ibadan city will begin to emerge on the corners of this road. That is development.
What Hedmond said, that the city of Ibadan, that you don't have any business if you're going to Ilesha, Ife, Ondo, you don't have any business to come into the city of Ibadan again. What you need to do is come in at this end. If you're coming from Lagos Ibadan Express, come in at this end and go straight to Badeku end and bust out at the Ibadan Ife Express. But the thing I need to let you know, like he said, this is bringing development to your state. This is building the new Ibadan. And I'm telling you, the corridor around this axis is going to be a world-class development. Industrial, residential are going to be world-class. What do I mean by that? You can't just bust out from the corridor end to come into the express, except you go and you link out. You come out at the toll gate end of the express. And the development that's going to be happening here are going to be highly regulated. I can bet you it's going to be a world-class residential area and it's going to be a world-class industrial area. Road.
This is the Ibadan-Lagos road, end of the circular road. From here, your exit, the main exit from here is the Ibadan-Ife road. So if you are coming from Lagos and you are going to Ife, you have no business again with the city of Ibadan. You cut off Iwo Road, and here you come out at the Badeku end. And that takes you straight to Osun State, Ondo State, from this end. I can talk about the quality of the work. It is clear for you to see. Perhaps Seyi Makinde can turn this bridge to a tourism attraction. You can't see how to open up a city. For a long time, Ibadan needed a new project that could open it up to a new level of development. At some point, Ibadan was expanding, but it was shrinking because the infrastructure base was not expanding with the population. With this project, you have opened up the city. So what will happen? A new Ibadan city will begin to emerge on the corners of this road. That is development.
what Edmond said, that the city of Ibadan, that you don't have any business if you're going to Ilesha, Ife, Ondo, you don't have any business to come into the city of Ibadan again. What you need to do is come in at this end. If you're coming from Lagos Ibadan Express, come in at this end and go straight to Badeku end and bust out at the Ibadan Ife Express. But the thing I need to let you know, like he said, this is bringing development to your state. This is building the new Ibadan. And I'm telling you, the corridor around this axis is going to be a world-class development. Industrial, residential are going to be world-class. What do I mean by that? You can't just bust out from the corridor end to come into the express, except you go and you link out. You come out at the road.
This is the Ibadan-Lagos road, end of the circular road. From here, your exit, the main exit from here is the Ibadan-Ife road. So if you are coming from Lagos and you are going to Ife, you have no business again with the city of Ibadan. You cut off Iwo Road, and here you come out at the Badeku end, and that takes you straight to Osun State. We're talking about Africa. The story of Africa is also the story of Nigeria. If you read this book, The Man Who Stole Africa, by Paul Kenyon, it brings you closer to the understanding of why Ghana became what it became in 1979. It's a breathtaking book. It is Africa's ruin, but our story too. Dictator Land, The Man Who Stole Africa, is a book you should read. Frederick Forsyth says that in this book, Mr. Kenyon narrates a jaw-dropping tale of greed, corruption and brutality in Africa. You will read the Ghana story here. The Ghana story is the story of Africa. The Financial Times says the stories this book tells of dictators such as Robert Mugabe and Muammar Gaddafi are fascinating and leave the reader to ponder why so many of Africa's liberation heroes turned into villains, like Kwame Nkrumah. At some point, he became unpopular in Ghana, and the military struck. So this book gives account of how a handful of men were handed a continent of rich lands and poor people, how they became tyrants overnight and turned their countries into cruel kleptocracies, how they ransacked their treasuries to make billion-pound fortunes while their people lived in unimaginable poverty. Dictator Land, The Man Who Stole Africa, a book by Paul Kenyon. I recommend the book to you. Another book I'm recommending to you is The Looting Machine. Warlords, tycoons, smugglers, and the systematic theft of Africa's wealth by Tom Borges. The Looting Machine. Why is the richest continent also the poorest? This book is a defiant book. The Looting Machine is a searing expose of the global web of traders, bankers, middlemen, despots, and corporate raiders that is pillaging Africa's vast natural wealth. The Looting Machine. Warlords, tycoons, smugglers, Africa's vast natural wealth. And the systematic theft of Africa's wealth by Tom Borges. I recommend this book to you. Another book I'm recommending to you is Congo, the Epic History of a People. Congo, the Epic History of a People by David Van Raybroek. This book tells the story of one of the world's most critical failed nation states, the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's a book you should read. You'll find these books on udarabooks.com. Order these books on udarabooks.com. You can also order them through my WhatsApp number. That is 080 18449. My WhatsApp number 080 18449. Just chat with me and tell me that you are interested in these books. I've recommended 3 books to you: Dictatorland, The Man Who Stole Africa, The Looting Machine, and Congo, the Epic History of a People. You'll find the books on udarabooks.com. It is the story of Ghana. It is the story of time. It is also the Nigerian story. It is about learning from history, and it's about joining the dialogue. I'm ready to read your messages, and I'm ready to pick your call. The old order falls. They came with fire in their hearts. They came with hunger in their eyes. The street trembled, not from the weight of boots, but from the weight of rage. In that hour, old flags were lowered by the crack of rifles. And Odati Wellington is down. It is the last march of Wellington. It happened under the fading skies of June. A soldier walked into history's scars. The bullets that brought him down also tore the fabric of an age. The street of Accra became battlefield. Rawlings and his supporters, many of them young and poorly equipped, were initially no match for the professional soldiers under the army commander's control. But public sentiment had shifted dramatically. Civilians poured onto the streets, clapping, celebrating the rebels, blocking army movements, and in some cases, actively helping the insurgents. The legitimacy of the old order was melting away before dirty Wellington's eyes. In a dramatic turn, many of the soldiers he relied on began wavering. Some refused orders, others switched sides. The mutiny's momentum became unstoppable. In the fighting, Odate Wellington was killed. The last defender of the Akufo government had fallen. His death marked the point of no return. The Akufo regime was finished. With Odate Wellington dead, Rawlings and his allies took control. A new body, the Armed Forces Ruling Council, the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, was established, with Rawlings at its head. The Armed Forces Revolutionary Council declared its mission to purge the nation of corruption and misrule. What followed shocked the world. Esther Odate Wellington on State Affairs. Gave your dad a full military burial. Why do you think they did that?
To begin with, when he was murdered, the body was kept away from us. Now he was murdered in July, and I think buried in August. July, and I think buried in August. Over the body, I think there were, I don't know, opposing factions, but they did. Eventually, common sense reigned, and the general was accorded this honor. Now, years later, Rawlings was found to be lying by claiming to have been a pallbearer at the funeral, and he certainly wasn't. I was there. He certainly wasn't. There was no justification of the general's murder. And they, the officers and men, knew that. They knew that he was an honest man. They knew that he was a good soldier. He was well respected, and he lived and breathed discipline. So there is no way that they would have done otherwise. The least they could have done was what they did. And indeed, the National Reconciliation Commission singles him out, as well as a few other officers and men. And they did cite that he showed leadership when it was lacking, and he tried to defend his country. And they asked that he be honored. We are still waiting for that.
So what do you believe were the real motives behind General Odate Wellington's murder?
His very existence stood in the way of the insurrectionists. That's my personal opinion. He was very well respected across the board. And if he had lived, I think it would have been difficult for the insurrectionists to have succeeded. I don't know how, but that's my personal opinion, because I just see my father as being a soldier's soldier. And the person that pulled the trigger on him did so for no apparent reason. Now, let me double back. None of the other general was anywhere to be seen or found. And in the chain of command, the army commander really shouldn't even be on the battlefield. He shouldn't be there. The brigade commander at that time sat on the fence. So when the commanding officer of the 5th Battalion of Infantry called the brigade commander, he didn't get any response. He called others, he didn't get any response. So he was compelled to call the army commander, who was my father. And in his own words, the army commander answered him, and he turned up, not in civilian clothes, but in full, properly attired in his general uniform. So if the brigade commander had done what he was supposed to do, Daddy would perhaps not have got into the thick of things. However, he stayed true to his calling and the oath he took to defend his country in the military. And he went when he was called, and this is how he was caught in the thick of the battle. Now, so eventually he ends up at the police headquarters after he'd been to broadcasting to make the announcements. And from then the soldiers, I think, they realized that he was there. So the Air Force started flying over and doing all sorts of things, hijinks. And my father did not want any casualties because of him. So he decided to leave there, and he went to a small district police station not far from the police headquarters, and called Nkrumah Police Station. So he was in the commander's office with his ADC EDCOM and his bodyguard and a group of, and he arrived there in a police, I think, Mowag armored car. And he asked the armored car driver to go back to his unit. So he was in there with just the bodyguard and the ADC. And as I understand it, a group of drunken soldiers were driving around, and I think somebody said, well, we saw the general go in here. They came and they just started firing indiscriminately. And the general raised his head, I think, to see the lie of the land, and he was hit in the neck. And they came in and they just started shooting him. And the person who did that, I believe, was a chap called John Newton Gachiko, Gatsiko. And he was rewarded with a place on the AFRC, Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, and he was an other rank.
Do you feel he should have been tried?
Tried for what?
For murdering the general.
Of course he should have been, because it is normal military etiquette that even in the midst of war, you do not shoot an enemy combatant who is already injured. What you do is to provide medical aid. And that is what the ADC said to them. The general is wounded. We need to get him to the military hospital. But that was in vain. Gachiko stood over the general and shot him many times, thereby destroying his face so that I didn't recognize my father's face when I eventually saw his body. Years later, or decades later, Rawlings went somewhere to speak to students. Actually, I'm not sure were these students from Nigeria? I may be mistaken, but why do I think they were from Nigeria? Anyhow, he told them there was a general called Wellington, and he went around saying that I did this, that, and the other. So we sprayed him like mosquitoes. Can you imagine? If people knew who he really was, I don't think they'll be hailing him as a hero. Though I don't blame those outside Ghana because the news is filtered. But for those in Ghana, they have absolutely no excuse but cowardice and their own selfish interests prevent them from saying it exactly as it is.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
The lines are open. 070694 93000, 070144 757 70. Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Edmond. Good morning, Nanachi Chief Sulaiman Oladipo. I'm a Bolani Walono Sheki Alamuri Jajogo. Look, Ghana's case was identical. But not, let me just say identical, but not the same as that of Nigeria. Let me tell you something. If Dinka and Oka had been successful in their bid, can you imagine what would have been affecting Nigeria today? Can you imagine what would have been affecting Nigeria today? No. Let me remind you. You can imagine a general officer commanding who was a great man in Nigeria, as far as I'm concerned, Muhammad Shua, who can never hurt a man, fed by Boko Haram bullet. And today, he just died like that, unsung. No street, no, I doubt it, they even name any street after him. That is the irony of it. That is what we have in Nigeria. Jerry Rawlings narrowly escaped indefeated. Because if General Darlington had not been killed by those stupid officers, let me call them stupid, because they were stupid. You met a general not holding a gun. His ADC was not attacking you. Yeah, you took it upon yourself to redo him with bullets. That is very, very, very callous. Some partnership. And I don't know what we can call the end of the Rawlings in Ghana. But observe Nigerian case too. Look at it. Where we have people who are not people to be addressed as gallant and honorable, doing what they did and got free with it. Then see what is always at their end. Edmund.
Sir.
Are you hearing me?
I'm with you, sir.
Nigeria will hail thee. May the labor of our heroes pass, not be in vain. Thank you, Edmund, for bringing us Ghana's case. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Bonariwa. Now let me make this point. Odate Wellington, after he was killed, was given a full military burial by the Jerry Rawlings team. And among the generals that were murdered during that period, he was the only one that got a military burial from the insurrectionists. Why? What was special about Major General Odate Wellington? The lines are open. 07069493000. You can also call 070-144-75770. Are you on X? Come on X. Put your message here. Let's see. So if you're on X, I'm with you. Good morning. Hello. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Are you on X? Let me see what you're saying on X. Come on X and join me. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Obido.
Good morning.
This is Mr. Charles from Manchester.
Go on, Mr.
As much
Charles.
as I like calling your program, it is quite difficult to get through to you. Now, it is normal for the woman to speak good of your husband. There's an adage that Yoruba says, if you give somebody an hoe, of course the person will hold towards his direction. But I'm telling you, if you hear another version, then you might hear an entirely different thing. Now, Jerry Rawlings brought a lot of changes to Ghana. There's no doubt about it. Now, when you are talking about Ghana's economy, you can never compare Ghana's economy to Nigeria's economy. Why? Because Nigeria is blessed with vast resources. Ghana is not as blessed as Nigeria, even though Ghana is small. But the little the Rawlings did there brought a lot of changes to Ghana. And that's why people like going to Ghana. And that's why Ghanaians are telling people to leave their country so that they can enjoy their country. There's no how insurrection will not arrive if those people that are running the country are not listening to people. When you don't listen to people, when you don't want to listen to criticism, when you hunt down people who are criticizing you, when people are suffering and you don't want to listen to them, assembly supposed to be the representative of the people and not listening to people. Then when there is insurrection, the people will welcome it. And if it does not happen through the army, it might happen to the people themselves. So I would advise the leaders to always listen to their people, listen to what they want, and attend to what they want so that the country will be beneficial to all of us. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Okay, Esther Odate Wellington is the daughter of the general, not his wife. The daughter. So come on X. Let me see you on X. I can see Agudo on X. Olufemi Olabode is on X. Femi, congratulations. You have graduated from the Department of Political Science.
Edmond.
Good morning.
Good morning. I hope that Wellington is the man head of the state then.
He was the chief of army staff.
Okay, that's the person they give special burial.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe he's the only person they found as what among of the government there, maybe they found him as an innocent person. That's why they give him that befitting burial. You see, what we are having here in Nigeria, whether Ghana is small or not, what they call it, Libya is small or not, they are managing their economy. We are too large in this country. That's why we are not getting it right. We are too large. If Undo is a little south-south, or little east-southeast, or even the west here, be on their own, they will manage their resources, their economy. We are too large in this country. That's why we are not getting it right.
That of Brigadier Ademulegun, the purchased, killed with impunity that tears the fabric of society. Solo Omo Ibadan on eggs. Femi, how are you? Femi Olabode, that's the latest political scientist in town. Femi Olabode. Mobolaji Bidemi is on X. I can see you. Thank you for joining the class on X. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Edmund. This is Mr. Benson. One jurisdiction I discovered about Ghanaian. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, the educational system works very well. Because from experience, in 1990 I was in Libya. Then I discovered the Ghanaians were ahead of Nigeria in terms of technical education. Whoever initiated that person in Ghana did very well for them. Not all these certificates we are telling you here and there in Nigeria and all over the world. Showing fake certificates or certificates. No technical education. Somebody will tell you he's this, put it practically, he cannot do it. So then in 1990, Ghanaians were taking up all jobs in Libya. Carpentry, mechanics, and other technical jobs. Who can work for Nigeria? For Nigerian youth to be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for calling the radio station. Good morning. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Am I on to Edmond Obilo?
You are on to State Affairs on Splash.
Good morning. My name is Alabi 20 Michael.
Happy to hear your voice.
I schooled in Ghana. I was at top preparatory school in Nkrumah in the western region before I moved to Shama in the western region too. But it was generally believed then that Rawlings was the one that brought a sort of transparency to the government of Ghana by maybe executing some corrupt leaders. But hearing the story of Galatian now, I'm having a different perspective about the whole scenario. All the same, it is generally believed at least 98% of 85% of Ghanaians, even up to now, even my friends and others, they believe that if not for Rawlings, the Ghanaian economy wouldn't have been a bit better than the way it is now. However, African countries are generally corruption is the major problem of African countries. And I believe, I don't even know how how things would take the right shape. And I believe the only thing that can bring good governance in African countries is by erasing corruption. How that corruption will be totally eradicated from African countries is now the major issues. May God help us all. Thank you. You are doing wonderfully well. Thank you.
John Oguche Onyisi is on Splash FM Facebook page. He says African real revolutionaries like Jerry Rawlings, Sankara, Traore of today shaped and still shaping Africa. Take a look at what Traore is doing, what Nigerian leaders could not do since democracy began in 1999. What a shame. Nigeria needs the like of Traore now. But what's Traore doing? You know, what's Traore doing? I'm still investigating the story, asking What is Traore doing in Burkina Faso? Yes, I know you like Traore, and there's nothing wrong in liking a leader. But what is he doing? But if you are totally relying on those messages you see on TikTok, my friend, wake up. What is going on is huge propaganda around the world. As far as I know, Burkina Faso is still swimming in economic quagmire. And Traore has a point to prove that Burkina Faso can be an advanced economy under his leadership. I'm waiting to see that. It is the story of Ghana, the story of Jerry Rawlings, the story of Major General Odate Wellington. Esther Odate Wellington is on State Affairs. Do you believe General Odate Wellington's death was part of a broader purge or power struggle within Odate Wellington's death was part of?
If I understand you correctly, are you asking me whether my father was involved in wanting to lead the country? Or was interested in wanting to lead the country and therefore was jockeying for positions with somebody? Is that what you're driving at?
I learned that your father, General Wellington, led the palace.
Really very good. But along the way, things went pear-shaped. Now, he wrote a letter, or he got his military assistant to write a letter to the military advisory committee, MAC. Now, this committee was made up of base commanders, unit commanders, and battalion commanders. And in this letter, he tried to, I think, raise morale and told them to try and find, in the letter, he mentioned the ills which had beset the military. And as I understand it, the letter ended with a rousing sentence: "Let us turn this seeming defeat to victory." Now, this phrase is similar. It's a paraphrase of the title of Field Marshal Viscount Slem's book called Defeat into Victory. So this letter was circulated to the members of the Supreme Military Council 1, which was headed by General Achampo, and senior officers. And the instructions were that they were to discuss with their senior staff and send their comments to the MAC, which I mentioned earlier, the Military Advisory Council. The Military Advisory Council was chaired by a member of the SMC-1. He was the naval commander, and his name was Rear Admiral Joy Amedome, A-M-E-D-U-M-E, Amedome. U-M-E, Amedome. So, my father was 1 brigade commander at that time and also a member of the MAC. So, he will have received that letter and he will have discussed it with his battalion commanders. And he would have sent their collective view to the MAC. So the consensus of the MAC, Military Advisory Council, was that General Achampong ought to step down. So this was not a unilateral decision. My father was a cog in the wheel. He was 1 brigade commander. He was not part of the SMC government. Now, he will have received his orders from the army commander, the chief of defense staff, or indeed the SMC-1 government. So my understanding is when the MAC presented their findings to the SMC-1, obviously with the CDS, the chief of defense staff then being General Akufo, he had to speak to General Achampong with the others present. Now, I understand that my father had been asked to supply troops from 1 brigade, which he did. A letter had been prepared for the general to sign, General Achampong, which he did. For the and he didn't want to sign it. In his estimation, it was whatever had gone wrong was not of his doing alone because he ruled with others. Yeah? The others being the members of the SMC government. My father wasn't part of it. Eventually, I think my father had to step in because General Achampong did not obviously want to, step down. And he interjected and he spoke. Now, General Achampong had the highest regard for my father as being an upright officer. And I think that helped also for him to sign the letter and step down. So to say that General Odache Wellington conceived the idea of ousting. Now, General Achampong had the highest regard that, in front of General Achampong, he refused to that. He refused to that when he put the letter in front of General Achampong. Say again.
And General Fred Akufo eventually promoted him to the position of the Chief of Army Staff.
That is correct. It was then known as Army Commander. So the Army Commander at the time was General Robert Cote, and he's the one I said was not around at the time. Eventually, my father was promoted to Army Commander and promoted from Brigadier to Major General.
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
105.5
We're actually at the beginning of the lot 1 of the first section of the circular road. Like I said earlier, the first section is about 32 kilometers span. So this is actually constructed by Cranebrook Limited. And I'm saying, if you look at what is here, if you look at to my left, you see the UTech University. And if you look to my right, you see another industry around. And you can have a view of the communication gadgets that are also power light around this axis. If you're coming into the city of Ibadan, you're coming to the light that His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde has actually created for the good people of Oyo State. So let's take the journey together. This is the beginning of the first phase of the circular road.
This is the Ibadan-Lagos road, end of the circular road. From here, your exit, the main exit from here is the Ibadan-Ife road. So if you are coming from Lagos and you are going to Ife, you have no business again with the city of Ibadan. You cut off Iwo Road, and here you come out at the Badeku end. And that takes you straight to Osun State, Ondo State from this end. I can talk about the quality of the work. It is clear for you to see. Perhaps Seyi Makinde can turn this bridge to a tourism attraction. You can't see how to open up a city. For a long time, Ibadan needed a new project that could open it up to a new level of development. At some point, Ibadan was expanding, but it was shrinking, because the infrastructure base was not expanding with the population. With this project, you have opened up the city. So what will happen? A new Ibadan city will begin to emerge on the corners of this road. That is development.
What Edmond said, that the city of Ibadan, that you don't have any business if you're going to Ilesha, Ife, Ondo, you don't have any business to come into the city of Ibadan again. What you need to do is come in at this end. If you're coming from Lagos Ibadan Express, come in at this end and go straight to Badeku end and bust out at the Ibadan Ife Express. But the thing I need to let you know, like he said, this is bringing development to your state. This is building the new Ibadan. And I'm telling you, the corridor around this axis is going to be a world-class development. Industrial, residential are going to be world-class. What do I mean by that? You can't just bust out from the corridor end to come into the express, except you go and you link out. You come out at the toll gate end of the express. And the development that's going to be happening. We're actually at the beginning of the lot 1 of the first section of the circular road. Like I said earlier, the first section is about 32 kilometers span. So this is actually constructed by Cranebrook Limited. And I'm saying, if you look at what is here, if you look at to my left, you see the UTech University. And if you look to my right, you see another industry around. And you can have a view of the communication gadgets that are also power light around this axis. If you're coming into the city of Ibadan, you're coming to the light that His Excellency Engineer Seyi Makinde has actually created for the good people of Oyo State. So let's take the journey together. This is the beginning of the first phase of the circular road.
This is the Ibadan-Lagos road, end of the circular road. From here, your exit, the main exit from here is the Ibadan-Ife road. So if you are coming from Lagos and you are going to Ife, you have no business again with the city of Ibadan. You cut off Iwo Road, and here you come out at the Badeku end. And that takes you straight to Osun State, Ondo State from this end. I can talk about the quality of the work. It is clear for you to see. Perhaps Seyi Makinde can turn this bridge to a tourism attraction. You can't see how to open up a city. For a long time, Ibadan needed a new project that could open it up to a new level of development. At some point, Ibadan was expanding, but it was shrinking, because the infrastructure base was not expanding. With this project, you have opened up the city. So what will happen? A new Ibadan city will begin to emerge on the corners of this road. That is development.
What Edmond said, that the city of Ibadan, that you don't have any business if you're going to Ilesha, Ife, Ondo, you don't have any business to come into the city of Ibadan again. What you need to do is come in at this end. If you're coming from Lagos Ibadan Express, come in at this end and go straight to Badeku end and bust out at the Ibadan Ife Express. But the thing I need to let you know, like he said, this is bringing development to Oyo State. This is building the new Ibadan. And I'm telling you, the corridor around this axis is going to be a world-class development. Industrial, residential are going to be world-class. What do I mean by that? You can't just bust out from the corridor end to come into the express, except you go and you link out. You come out at the toll gate end of the express. And the development that's going to be happening here are going to be highly regulated. I can bet you it's going to Badeku end and bust out at the Ibadan Ife Express. But the thing I need to let you know, like he said, this is bringing development to Oyo State. This is building the new Ibadan. And I'm telling you, the corridor around this axis is going to be a world-class development. Industrial, residential are going to be world-class. What do I mean by that? You can't just bust out from the corridor end to come into the express, except you go and you link out. You come out at the toll gate end of the express. And the development that's going to be happening here are going to be highly regulated. I can bet you it's going to be a world-class residential area and it's going to be a world-class industrial area. Thank you. What Hedmond said, that the city of Ibadan, that you don't have any business if you're going to Ilesha, Ife, Ondo, you don't have any business to come into the city of Ibadan again. What you need to do is come in at this end. If you're coming from Lagos Ibadan Express, come in at this end and go straight to Badeku end and bust out at the Ibadan Ife Express. But the thing I need to let you know, like he said, this is bringing development to your state. This is building the new Ibadan. And I'm telling you, the corridor around this axis is going to be a world-class development. Industrial, residential are going to be world-class. What do I mean by that?
The program is State Affairs on Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station. We are broadcasting from Ibadan, the capital of Oyo State in Nigeria. It is the story of Ghana. It is the story of Jerry Rawlings, the story of General Odate Wellington. It is the story of time. I want to recommend this book to you. Fidel Castro, My Life. Fidel Castro of Cuba. You remember him? He launched a revolution that toppled the government of Batista in Cuba in the 1950s. You remember Che Guevara? The story of Fidel Castro has been written. He wrote his story. It's an autobiography with Ignacio Ramonet. Fidel Castro, My Life. Classic. Classic. It's a book you should have on your palm to understand world politics. Fidel Castro. Raul Castro. You remember Raul, the younger brother of Fidel? They governed Cuba. Fidel Castro, My Life. You can order your copy on udarabooks.com. Castro's prodigious gifts are well displayed in this book. His formidable erudition, stellar discipline, epic curiosity, and his astute grasp of history is documented in this book. Order Fidel Castro on udarabooks.com. The word for sale, money, power, and the traders who bartered the earth's resources. The word for sale, money, power, and the traders who bartered the earth's resources. A book written by Javier Blas and Jack Fachi. Have you read it? Meet the billionaire traders who supply the world with oil, metal, and food. You've probably never heard of them. They wield unimaginable political and economic power. And, like it or not, you are one of their customers. Read this book, The Word for Sale. The Word for Sale. Classic. Epic. The story of man, Africa, and resources. The Word for Sale, Money, Power, and the Traders Who Batter the Earth's Resources. Order your copy on udarabooks.com. Africa is not a country, by Dikbo Following. Africa is not a country. A book written by Dikbo Following. Order your copy on udarabooks.com. A brilliant exploration of a richly complex continent, an antidote for our times. Great book. I like the texture of the book. Africa is not a country, breaking stereotypes of modern Africa. A book written by Dikbo Following. You will find this book on udarabooks.com. You can also order these books through my WhatsApp numbers. Just chat with me. 080-309-18449. 080-309-18449. Fidel Castro, The Word for Sale. Africa is not a country. These are the 3 books I've just introduced to you. You can get them on udarabooks.com. You can also order them through my WhatsApp number, 080-309-18449. That is 080-309-18449. With Odate Wellington dead, Rawlings and his allies took control. A new body, the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, AFRC, was established, with Rawlings at its head. The AFRC declared its mission to purge the nation of corruption and misrule. What followed shocked the world. In a swift house-cleansing trials, the AFRC targeted senior military leaders accused of corruption and abuse of office. On the 26th of June 1979, the following senior army officers were executed by firing squad. Are you there? On June 26, 1979, the following senior officers were executed by firing squad. General Ignatius Kutu Achiampong, former head of state of Ghana, from 1972 to 1978, was executed by the Jerry Rawlings gang. Another head of state that was killed, Lieutenant General Frederick William Kwasi Akufo, head of state of Ghana, 1978 to 1979. Odate Wellington was the chief of army staff under Lieutenant General Akufo. Jerry Rawlings executed him too. Another general that was executed by the Jerry Rawlings gang, Major General Robert Ebenezer Bosi-Kote, former Chief of Defense Staff of Ghana. Also executed is Rear Admiral Joy Amudemo, former Navy Commander. Air Vice Marshal George Yo Boake, former Air Force Commander, was also executed by the Jerry Rawlings gang. Colonel Roger Joseph Fairley, former Commissioner for Foreign Affairs, was also executed. Jerry Rawlings is not done. He continues. On June 26, 1979, 2 former military leaders from the NLC era, General Akwasi Afrifa, former head of state 1969, was executed by Jerry Rawlings. Colonel Emmanuel Kwesi Kotoka had already been killed in 1967, but Afrifa's execution was seen as completing the purge of that earlier order. They stood in line, one by one. The earth swallowed them whole, yet their ghost stayed in the air, speaking questions to the ears of the living. The firing squad does not end the story. It merely writes its next chapter in blood. Power changes hands, but the human thirst for it remains unquenched. Esther Odate Wellington on State Affairs. One thing about that revolt was its brutal character. Not just General Odate Wellington was killed. The Jerry Rawlings gang rounded off previous leaders of Ghana, military leaders like Fred Akufo, Achiampong, and others were executed.
Yes, that is true.
Can we reflect on that?
Yes. As I said to you earlier, the National Reconciliation Commission report stated or described the 112 days of murderous rampage and sheer terror that the AFRC, i.e. Jerry Rawlings and his acolytes, unleashed on Ghana as being the bloodiest ever. And the NRC described life as being solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Now, when this thing began, Ghanaians thought it would be just the generals. So some of them were cock-a-hoop. They were very happy. But these things never end that way. It trickled down into the civilian population. And neighbors told on each other. People who had scores to settle with others lied about them. Women could be arrested for a spurious reason, like, say, you are a baker and they find 10 bags of flour in your house. You'll be accused of hoarding flour. A baker, you couldn't store flour. And these are not apocryphal stories I'm going to tell you. They are true and they have names attached. And you can find all this in the National Reconciliation Commission report, where a woman was stripped naked and she was douched with a concoction of gunpowder and chili pepper, thus destroying her womb. They would just strip women naked, splay their legs, and cane them in between their legs while shouting, "It is light, it is clear. It is light, it is clear."
What does that mean?
I don't know. I have translated it from the local parlance. It was not something I had ever heard in my life. So I don't know the meaning. I ought to ask, but I don't know the meaning. And they would perform mock executions. And the generals who were arrested and tied to the stake. Now, they didn't run away. When they were asked to report, once, at least I know that once General Akufo heard that my father was dead, he just gave himself out. And others also did the same. Now, if they thought they were guilty of something, would they have done so? They were never tried. They were just shot, executed in cold blood. Then anybody above the rank of major and above was asked to report. And I think initially, the other ranks, and Rawlings and his acolytes had decided that they would, or anyone of the rank of major and above would be executed. But I think the uproar after the execution of the generals and others, when the international condemnation and everything made them put a brake on things. But that did not stop the extrajudicial killings. It didn't stop the tortures. It didn't stop the horrible things, the rapes, the murders, the disappearances. It didn't stop that at all. And Ghanaians cowered in fear. And this was over just 112 days from June to September 1979. Now, when Rawlings made his initial broadcast, he said something along the lines of, I should like to take this opportunity to emphasize that we have not come to entrench ourselves in power. We are soldiers and we will return to barracks. Now, he's a man of his word, isn't he?
Yeah.
Because 20 years later, he had to be pulled out, kicking and screaming to give up the throne.
At that time, they handed over to a civilian administration, didn't they?
Let me clarify that. Once General Achampo had been made to stand down, General Akufo then the SMC2 made a decision that they were going back to barracks. Now, actually, let me double back. One of the things also which caused General Achampon's downfall was his introduction of this idea of union government, which was known as Unigov. I mean, personally, I don't think Unigov was a bad idea. The union government was to do away with partisan politics, political parties. So I think the concept was individuals would present themselves as candidates to the electorate, and then the electorate would vote, the individual will have to campaign on his or her own merit, and their performance would then be judged by the electorate, you see. So in a sense, this would have done away with the jockeying for positions by multi-party politics and its accompanying rampant corruption. So I don't think it was a bad idea. But what made it unpalatable was that the general was seen to be wanting to stay in power ad infinitum, and he wanted to head this union government. I feel sure that if he'd introduced this thing and said, look, I'm stepping down, but this is what I think will work for the country, it may have been better received. And then there was a referendum, which he won, Unigov, when people saw it as a sham, rigged. So all these things, caused immense disquiet, and that is why he had to step down. So General Akufo, when he came into power, said, okay, we are returning to barracks. we want to hand over to a civilian government. Now, the political parties were not ready. They were not organized at that time to take over the reins of power. So they, in concert with the government of the day, decided on a date, September 1979. So the SMC2 was just holding the fort while they got themselves their acts together. In the course of that, Rawlings tried another uprising. I think it was 15th of May, 1979. And when he was caught, he was not executed because the generals were officers and gentlemen, and they did not spill blood indiscriminately. And he was put before he was court-martialed. So while this was going on, his friends were plotting behind, and then they staged this thing and then they plunked him at the head of it. So a date had already been set for return to civilian rule. So Rawlings the AFRC handing over this was not, I think they would have been happy to stay there. Having said that, when during the handover, he actually threatened the president. He was Dr. Hila Liman, President Liman. He said he was on probation. He actually told the president he was on probation. And after that, I think what happened was late now, so he hands over power, and then he goes back into the Air Force. Now, can you imagine? This man has tasted blood and power. He's a flight lieutenant. He goes back, and he was known then as chairman of the AFRC. Now he goes back into the Air Force, and he sort of has an office. Soldiers are going to him with their grievances. So it was as though there were two parallel presidents in the country, right? And this was going to cause problems for the chain of command. So eventually, President Liman retired him and others from the forces. And he was very angry and went around complaining to anyone who would listen to him, was always on the university campus doing this rabble-rousing. And eventually it culminated in another coup. You see, and that is what people fail to understand. He overthrew a legitimately elected government. So how does that make him the father of democracy in Ghana and Africa or elsewhere? I don't think the people that praise him know exactly. Have they found out whether what he is?
State Affairs with Edmond Obilo is live.
Okay, you can react. Call 070694 93000 and 070144 75770. Please make it brief this time because we are rounding up the show. 070694 93000 Remember, after the June 1979 coup, Jerry Rawlings governed for a few months and handed over to Liman. When Liman fired him from the army, Rawlings and his guys bounced back and took over power. He then governed Ghana for more than 18 years. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for educative programs like this. We learn a lot from you.
Thank you.
I've been to Ghana in around 2009, and I'm very sure Ghana is a very corrupt country within my short period I spent there, because I went down into the local community as I was a student there, tried to initiate a company. Their local government is corrupt, their chiefs are corrupt, and people that listen to those type praise the Rawlings. So I think we are learning. Thank you.
Thank you. The lines are open. You can also leave your message on X, on YouTube, on Facebook. I'm ready to read your message. Good morning.
Good morning, Edmond. Koladori Kolibag.
Thank you.
I think the woman is talking. Look deep and think deep. The military rule over us take us far back. Like the way we celebrate Buhari. And he was the one that took over from a legitimate democracy and put up to run this. I think if such have not happened, our democracy could have wumble and tumble, and we can do the message I got from that woman. Thank you.
Thank you. Esther Dati Wellington. You know, she might want to react to some of the points. Good morning, Esther.
Good morning, Edmund. Good morning.
You are listening to the program, right?
Yes, I am indeed.
You want to respond to some of the callers?
Yeah. Yes. If I may.
Go ahead.
One of the very first callers, I can't remember which number, but very early on, he made the comment that I'm being sentimental and he doesn't blame me because the general is my father and so on and so forth, and that so far as he's concerned, Rawlings did a good job. My answer to that is he has no idea what he's talking about. He's talking ignorance. I would refer him to the 1,000-page National Reconciliation Commission report. Now, the commission comprised eminent Ghanaians of no particular political persuasion, and they came out with a comprehensive report based on victims who they interviewed, and they had papers to back their complaints. Now, can this caller explain to me why after President Kufuor's regime or government, the next government, which really was a spin-off of Rawlings's NDC, decided to disable the website which contained all these documents as well as the background papers? People should really be very careful about hailing Rawlings when he overthrew a democratically elected government. And I repeat, a democratic elected government.
Thank you.
Now, I know your time is short, so I'll just talk about one of the last callers, and he described these adventurers as callous, stupid soldiers, and he's dead on point. When you give arms indiscriminately to people who are on drugs and fueled with alcohol, they go around just killing left, right, and center. And finally, may I say that when Rawlings and his acolytes took up the guns, the students and young people thought it would just be the generals. And then when they realized that it wasn't going to be so, and they, the students, rose up, what did Rawlings do? He closed the universities for nearly 1 year.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you.
He did. Thank you very much, Edmund, for this opportunity. Thank you so much for this educative program. Bye-bye.
Bye. History is a cruel painter. It chooses which faces to remember and which to fade into the background. A man can command thousands, yet in the final hour, he can command only his own courage. Next week is another time on State Affairs. I am Edmond Obilo. The next program is Ijoba Tiwa Wushin Special. It is Splash 105.5.